Hi there, it's Michael Cowan here again, and I'm chatting to Brett Commaille. No, that's wrong. I've said that wrong, haven't I?
Commaille, but it's okay. You're not the first to normally be the last to get that wrong.
And I asked you how to pronounce it before as well. Anyway, let's get straight
Many
into it.
people produce pronounce OM as a AR. It's all right.
You know, I've got the same problem. My surname's Cowan, but most people go CO as Cohen. So anyway, I'm sure everyone doesn't want to know how we pronounce and discuss our surnames. Brett, you're the CEO of Angel Hub. Why don't you give us a bit of an insight into who Angel Hub is and what you guys do? Because it's a really cool concept, and yeah, there's a lot of I'll let you tell us about it. I think that's probably safer.
Fantastic. Thanks, Michael Cowan. Angel Hub is really something that we're quite excited about. It was started, formally launched in September last year by a group of individuals who've been working in the venture capital and tech industry over a number of years, and have constantly heard people saying, we're the angel investors. We see all the stuff that happens in the US and Europe, that angel investors are the biggest driver actually of venture capital activity and of early stage investment. You know, where's this here? And we kept waiting for somebody to do it while we were doing venture capital, and nobody was doing it. So eventually we jumped in and decided, look, we'll get the ball rolling. You know, places like New Zealand has 20 angel groups. The US has well over 300. Europe's got 350 or 360 and something. So we just way behind, and they seeing the benefits, and they seeing the growth, and everything from increased GDP and job creation that comes from focusing on that sector, and we just nowhere when it comes to that. So Angel Hub was created to fill that gap, to assist early stage entrepreneurs in finding mentorship, finding advice, experience, and funding, of course. But funding is not the most important of those, but getting that support that they need to get them to the point where either they've got a business that's running that can generate funds, or alternatively they have sufficient track record and evidence to go and find a big VC funder or a later stage investor. And so Angel Hub is, in essence, the structure of it is it's a managed angel group, and we find angel investors who are either new to the game or are experienced in investing into early stage businesses. And we give them all the structures, the documentation, and the kind of support they need to be able to spread their investment across a couple of potential businesses. And on the other hand, we give entrepreneurs access to angel investors in one place, so that they don't have to be part of the old networks or know somebody who knows somebody and get into, to be able to get a bit of funding from these guys. So you can come to one place, and there you can meet up with the investors and make the connection that you need to get your business going.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, because I know I said it to you when we last chatted. Whilst I'd be happy to invest in a startup, I'd hate to have to oversee it or to analyze how well they're doing and what they're doing and what have you, because it must be quite a unique skill to actually look at it from the outside inside and to make sure these guys are hitting the right blocks and getting to the right targets and managing the process quite correctly.
Yeah, I think what we've seen is, many people, particularly experienced businessmen, are very comfortable if you ask them to take over a large business. If he has a business that's turning 100 or 200 million, you need to go and do that buyout, and they know exactly what to do. But you say to them, these two guys have got this fantastic thing. They've just launched it, online, and it's new territory, because they don't know what's fair, what's normal. Do I take 10%? Do I ask for 90%? Do I give all my money now? And fair enough, there are those guys who are experienced in that, but a lot of people need a little bit of hand-holding through that process, just for the first one or two, actually figure out how it all gets done and what the industry standards are. Now, the group behind this have been doing venture capital for many years now, and we're certainly one of the most experienced venture capital and early stage investment teams around. We've got a good balance of both tech and business minds. So we understand the space, and we know how to get your head around it and manage your risks. You can't eliminate them, but you can certainly manage them through a couple of basic steps. But importantly, on the other side, you also don't want the entrepreneur to now have to, try and figure all of this out for themselves as well. So it's just providing the tools for both parties, but you also want to make sure that where there is an angel investor who is keen to be involved, because some guys do want to do that hand-holding. Some guys do actually want to assist, but they don't want to be doing the accounts. They don't want to be asking the guy, have you gone and done your company registration? All of that out the way. They want to give strategic input and high-value input, including bringing networks and bringing people to help grow that sort of business. And that's what we facilitate, because we've got business partners who take care of all the legal, the accounts, and that, and the monthly reporting. And what we get to is extracting the real value out of an angel investor, and that's his experience and mentorship.
Okay. And in terms of the South African market, because, you go read it on TechCrunch or Business Insider, there's always the glitz and the glamour around the VC, and it's there's always a story about it. In the South African context, how far behind are we? You mentioned the different sizes of the market. How far behind the rest of the world are we in terms of venture capitaling and our thinking around venture capitaling? Because, it's always the question, that an entrepreneur is going to have. Where's the money? Where's the money? Where's the money?
Yeah, I think we're certainly behind, but it's a combination of factors. So I think the maturity of the market is maybe the biggest factor. In a mature market, you've got many buyers, many sellers, and so things move back and forth freely, and every single stage of business. So there's seed funding, then there is angel funding, then there is venture capital funding, and each one, there's early and mid stage and late stage venture capitalists who will invest at the various stages, and ultimately they will exit other venture capitalists or onto a market where it is easy to list and make it freely tradable. Now that's what's missing on our side, is that fully developed ecosystem. We've got pockets that function very well. So we've got a massively developed private equity market. And there are tons of players in the private equity space, and they trade and do very well. But before them is this huge gap, because from venture capital to private equity, most of the, when even venture capital businesses have invested for 2 or 3 years, it's still a business that's generally too early for a private equity business. So there's that gap. And then there's the gap before venture capital, which is the angel fund, and before that you've got some government funds that go into research and assisting projects earlier on. But it's trying to fill those 1 or 2 gaps. And it's not that you don't need hundreds of players. If we can just get each of those stages functioning relatively well, they've got a few deals going through. I think that's what we need to start driving a lot more people into this, because there are a lot of people who are interested, but then they'll say things like, but how do we exit? Where do we exit? And so our team has had, we've had some good successes of late with some of the VC exits. So we're starting to build good exit networks internationally because of the challenges locally. And slowly we're starting to fill those gaps. And I think that's what's going to take our market and help us to catch up. Other things that you'll find, like they have, because of the numbers of players, they get very sophisticated in their structuring. And, you've got so many levels of shares and rights, and that we don't have all of that, simply because, we don't have so many players. It's not so competitive. But eventually we will get there. It's just that we need the whole ecosystem. We need all those gaps filled, and we need it kind of to be able to go from start to finish.
Brilliant. Now, in terms of the approach and the environment we're operating, obviously we're in a very different market to the European and the United States environments. What's the difference in terms of the approach for VCs in South Africa? Because I would imagine the risk's a lot higher, and also the failure factor is a big issue.
Funnily enough, I'll disagree a little bit around the risks being much higher. I think if you're a venture capital fund or an early stage investor in Europe and in the US, you have a hell of a lot of competition. So you've got a lot of people going after the same deals. So in the States, guys like Sequoia and that will see all the top deals. and everybody else then fights amongst themselves for the lesser ranking deals, and the more risky deals. And so as a result, you've got a lot of competition over relatively few deals. So your failure rates are going to be a lot higher. Because investment going slightly further down the line. Whereas in South Africa, because we have naturally a smaller market in that, but because we've got far fewer investors, you do have the opportunity to cherry pick. You can be a lot more selective, and it doesn't mean that you're now disregarding the opportunities. But it means that you can select opportunities that are more likely to succeed, and even if you ignore those that are less likely, should we say, there's still plenty to be done. So one can say that yes, we've there's certainly drawbacks within our market, but I would also argue that it means that we actually have a huge amount of opportunity here. And certainly we've seen foreign investors have been landing on these shores, looking at the opportunity, and are getting excited.
Well, that's good news.
Very much so.
Yeah, fantastic.
I know we'd be more than happy to have more and more players in the sector. All we want to do is just make sure that we get more money invested into SMEs, and SMEs starting to see successes.
Yeah, absolutely. But in order to see successes, what are the, because you guys obviously look at an ROI factor, and certainly if I'm looking for angel investing or venture capital, what are the kind of ROI criteria do you guys look for? Because I've obviously got to give you guys feedback in terms of how we're performing, and what are your criteria in terms of numbers and measurement for this kind of environment that we're operating in?
Man, it's relatively simple. I think everybody can try to be complicated, but if we look at angel investors, they follow the same standard as is common worldwide. And we had one or two guys out from the UK recently, and they were these angel investors, and they were saying exactly the same thing. And that is, they expect when they go into a business, they want to know that it has the potential to return 5 to 10 times money in 5 years. Now that doesn't mean that it will, but it must be one that looks like it is likely. So, for example, if you are just doing a pizza franchise, a pizza franchise, it's all known. You can go and look up all the models. It'll grow at X%. Let's just say it's 15% a year. So, with 15% a year growth into that, there's no way that it will return that sort of money. So it is not an angel investment. But it's not that the angels are being greedy. Remember, they've got high-risk investments.
Yeah, for sure.
There is a high likelihood of failure, which means that the few that succeed need to make up for the losses. And that's why, I don't think we will quite see the 1 in 10 success rates that you do worldwide. I think we'll have higher success rates than that. But it does mean that you've got to try and balance out your portfolio.
Yes. Okay. In terms of the hurdles for a guy looking for VC or angel investment, what do they need to overcome? What is it that you guys are looking for? If I had to come to you now, Brett, and say, I want you to invest in my business, what is it that you're looking for, and what do guys need to come and give you an insight on? Because they've probably got one pitch at you.
I think first of all, it's important that you've understood what we're looking for. So all the funders, investors, be it VCs, angels, and that have an indication somewhere of what their criteria are. So first of all, take the time to look at it and see whether this person is suitable, because there's nothing more frustrating than somebody hammering on about why you don't want to invest into their business when actually you state clearly you don't do those sort of investments. Okay, so, but once you've gotten past that, there are 4 kind of key things. So, number 1, you want to know that there is a burning need that your product is going to be aimed at. So, it's got to be a burning need, and it needs to be in a market that is expanding, not declining. Okay. Second of all, you need to have a good solution to that need. And it needs to be one that is unique. Sorry, unique's maybe not the word. It needs to be different. It can't be exactly the same as somebody else is operating in your market. And that, because it adds one more thing onto the risks.
Yes.
And in fact, there's a great article that just came out recently about de-risking buckets and trying to say that, there's so many different risks that guys look at: technology risk, team risk, and that. And you want to basically try and remove all the risks. Not remove all the risks. You want to make it as attractive as possible by managing each of the risks in the various areas.
Yeah.
But okay, so we said burning need. We need to have a solution to that need. And the third thing is you need to show that there is a way to make money off of that solution. So it's got to be an economic business model.
Okay.
And the fourth thing that ties it all together is that there is a team who can execute a doable plan.
Okay.
It must be realistic. That takes care of all those first 3 points.
Okay.
So really, it's believable entrepreneur that people think are authentic and is capable, energetic, and enthusiastic of achieving of meeting and leading a team to do all of that.
Okay, so there's no rocket science here, and there's no hidden trick to this. It's just good practical business sense, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the same thing that you look at if you were buying a 10-year-old business down the line.
Yeah.
It's the same old principles, and it's just so often people will sit in front of an investor and they will be telling them about all their different things. And they get very frustrated at the end when the guys just don't come back. And you need to evaluate, well, which one of those categories am I not delivering on? And it might be you, for example.
Yes. Okay.
And if you get a very vague and polite answer, often that is the case. Where if you sat in a session with an investor and you spent the whole time arguing their points with them and just fighting, and afterwards you get this polite response to say, thanks, it's not for us. Maybe they just think they can't work with you. So there are many reasons why it can miss it. But if you can get those four comfortably battened down, then I think you stand a good chance.
Yeah, and it makes logical sense, absolutely. And you shouldn't be going into business if you can't answer those 4 points anyway. You shouldn't be risking your pension on that.
Well, that's exactly it, because you are an investor into your business. So you absolutely have to make that call yourself and go, is this something? If somebody were coming to me with this business plan, would I invest into it? And you would be able to divorce yourself from the passion of some exciting idea and make a good logical decision as to whether it's worth pursuing.
Fantastic. But, we've talked about the money side of things, and you must see a lot of different businesses and a lot of entrepreneurs. And money and operational structure, etc., is one thing. But one of the key success factors, and you've just mentioned it, is the individual involved. The ability to get out of bed every morning after you've had 100 no's the day before. As an entrepreneur, it's a hard road, and I don't think many aspiring entrepreneurs really understand this. And it sounds great when you've got the idea. What is the most difficult thing you think for entrepreneurs, from an attitudinal point of view, to take it to the next level? What are those key challenges and those difficult areas that entrepreneurs need to look at within themselves from a personal level?
Sure. Yeah, it's probably one of the toughest questions in terms of what do you need in your makeup to push through. And I think everybody gets through for different reasons, and they're different things that drive them, whether it's ambition down to just downright stubbornness. But I think for me, what I look for in an entrepreneur, there's obviously massive motivation and enthusiasm. I mean, that's the obvious one right up front, that you want to make sure that somebody looks like they are committed to this. But balanced with that is they need to be coachable.
Okay.
And coachable is a huge factor for me, and it means that somebody is willing to take direction, not blindly.
Yeah.
You're not somebody who just says, who walks into invest and go, what do you think I should do? What do you think? That's not what it's about. Because if you can't actually come up with your own direction, and you're going to have investors just as concerned as if you didn't want to hear a thing they said. But you need to be somebody who will take potential, hints, guides, support, advice, go and test it, and that which is worthwhile, implement it.
Okay.
And I think coachability is probably one of the key things that people look for. And I've seen many deals turned down because the guys just didn't want to take that advice. They would get some really good advice and they would just ignore it. And when they came back, the guys say, "No, well, and they just missed it." And so I think being coachable is key. But then I think you've also got to be someone who has massive resolve to handle rejection, because many people will not like your idea. They will not love it like you do. And people can take that very personally, and guys can be very upset when people don't catch their vision. And maybe they're not catching your vision because you're not selling it properly, you're not putting it across properly, or they're not catching your vision because your vision is rubbish. And it's so I think maybe the last or key thing that I would say is just to be downright honest with yourself as well. I'm not talking about somebody who beats themselves up, but being honest with yourself to evaluate constantly. All right, I pitched this thing. What did the guy say? The person that I pitched gave me this feedback. Let me evaluate that feedback. Which of those things are true? Which of those things are not? How do I need to adapt it? And you're just being honest with yourself, because every rejection is an opportunity to learn. Every time somebody turns you down is an opportunity to move on and make do something with it. And so you want to see that in an entrepreneur. I know many guys have pitched hundreds of times before they got their first funding.
Okay, yeah. In fact, the AdMob guy, I forget his name, who set it up. I mean, when he sold AdMob for $750 to Google, he was still driving his rusty old bucket and had 3 failed startups behind him. I mean, that takes perseverance.
Yes, really does. The gentleman who started Travel Start, Stefan Ekberg. He's a great local investor as well, and entrepreneur. He sat, in fact, the very first time I met him, I sat on a panel with him, and it was a discussion around entrepreneurship and venture capital and those sort of opportunities. And he was doing his intro before me, and the first thing he said was, he hates those or whatever, the VCs. and because he pitched, he gives a number, but I think it's like well over 100 different VCs and that he'd pitched to, and he'd been turned down. But there he was, sitting in huge success. So it will come. It will come. You need to push through. And hopefully, the faster, if you're a fast learner, you might bring that number down dramatically. But you just got to be prepared to hang in there and evaluate constantly. Like, should I be doing it? Should I be doing it slightly differently? And that constant evaluation hopefully hones your pitching, hones your product, and eventually gets you what you need.
Fantastic. Brett, I think that's all we have time for. We've had a long chat here. Thanks so much for taking the time out and having a chat to us here, and thank you for sharing your insights. Any last words for you? Except I'm not going to hand out your home phone number or anything, so people can't phone you and say, "Brett, give us money." So, any last words or any last resources that people can go
absolutely. I think for me, what I'd love to tell entrepreneurs is, it's very easy to get discouraged in this game when people are rejecting you and saying no, and you're not getting the funding you want. But you know what? The first thing you need to do is stop blaming anyone else, and stop blaming the fact that there's not funding and there's not this, and get out there, change what evaluate yourself, evaluate how you're doing it, and go and try again because if you've got something worthwhile, there are people willing to invest and support you. So you need to get to the right people, and you need to get the right message across to them. Absolutely. So if you're not getting support, damn well, evaluate what you're trying to sell, and get that sorted out, and you will get the right support. It's out there. There's no need to lose hope and be all hopeless and angry and shout and send rude messages on the internet to the world at large for beating you up. Do this.
It's your sailboat. Sail it properly. That's it.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Brett, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Lovely to chat.
I really appreciate it too. Thank you.